So now what's happening is we're being given the trig ratio of the angle and being asked to reverse engineer and find the angle. So in order to do that, if we look at question A, we want to find theta. To find theta, we have to undo the sine function, which would mean mathematically we do sine to the minus 1 of 0.879. Turn to the calculator. We need to actually make the distinction whether or not we're in degrees or radians. We're going to use degrees for this because it's just easier to deal with. Change the mode. To get sine to the minus 1, we'll press second function, sine 0.879 gives us, we'll take one decimal place, theta being 61.5 degrees. This is one answer, and the calculator will always spit out one of the answers at us. It will never actually spit out the second answer that always exists. We have to do some work to find that. So we'll go to the XY axis. A 61.5 degree angle would be about here. And the other thing we need to look at is which of the other four quadrants this angle is going to be in. To do that, we need to go back to cast. And we need to look back at the original question given. So in the original question here, sine theta equaled 0.879. Specifically, we're looking at whether sine was positive or negative. Well, 0.879 is positive, so sine was positive. The calculator will always give us one of the answers. Now it's in quadrant A, meaning all trig functions are positive, and sine is one of them, so that makes sense. The other angle will be in quadrant 2, where sine is positive. To find that second angle, we need to look. This was a 61.5 degree angle. We need to draw a 61.5 degree angle into quadrant 2. This angle is called the reference angle, and it's always drawn from the x-axis, never from the y-axis. Now that doesn't tell us the second angle, that gives us the information to find it. That second angle is still measured from standard position like so. So to find that second angle, we need to take 180, subtract off 61.5, and our second angle would be 119.5 degrees. B is going to function very similar. This time we'll need to do cosine. So this time theta will equal cosine to the minus 1 of negative 0.366. Put that into the calculator. Second cosine, negative 0.366. We get 111.5 degrees. Go to the XY axis, and 111.5 would be roughly here. Put on cast while we're at it. Now, the first thing you might notice is, well, how do I draw a 111.5 degree angle into a quadrant? We don't. We need to actually find the reference angle for that, which sometimes is the case. So this angle in here is what we need to find, and that's 68.5 degrees. That is not our second angle. That's just the angle we need to draw into the other quadrant. So look back at the question. Cosine equaled a negative. So we need to find the other quadrant here where cosine is a negative. That would be quadrant 3. So we need to draw a 68.5 degree angle into quadrant 3. and then determine the whole angle drawn from standard position like that. In this case, we'd have to do 180 plus 68.5, which would give us a second angle of 248.5. Clear off some space for the last two examples. C theta would be tangent to the minus 1 of root 3. Go to the calculator. Second function tangent of square root of 3 gives us 60 degrees, nice even number to work with. Put that on xy axis, roughly here. Cast again. Oops. Back at the question, tangent was a positive. We need the other quadrant where tangent's positive. That is T. So we'll draw a 60-degree angle into quadrant 3, roughly like that. And our final answer for the second angle will be this whole angle drawn from standard position, which would be 180 plus 60, or 240 degrees. D, we run into a problem that we've run into before. We have secant, which does not appear on the calculator, but secant is the same as 1 over cosine. So we know that cosine of theta, now we could put 1 over 2 over root 3, or we could use the fact that secant and cosine are just reciprocals and just make this root 3 over 2. So then theta would be cosine to the minus 1 of root 3 over 2. Deal with that in the calculator. Second cosine. Now we need to be careful on the brackets, making sure that we close them in the proper place. So we'll do root 3. We need to close the bracket on the root. Then we can divide by 2, close the bracket on the entire thing, and we get 30 degrees. XY axis. 30 degrees is about here. Cast. Looking at the question, we had secant equaling a positive, which is equivalent to cosine equaling a positive. So we need the other quadrant in which cosine is positive. That's quadrant 4. Draw a 30-degree angle into quadrant 4. And to find the entire second angle, measure it from standard position. So to calculate that, we'd have to do 360 minus 30, which would give us 330 degrees.